three specific things that I would call out that I would say I think are more on the tactical side. One, I think actually the pandemic pushed us into this space, but I think we've gotten away from it. I think a lot of organizations really leaned into the sort of check-in and the well-being sort of thing. You know, you kind of probably a little bit overdone, right? Every meeting was started with like, how are we? And, you know, a lot of that type of stuff. And I think it was along the right track to start to create the space for having people show up and share with them, you know, with the rest of the group or with their manager, what was going on. I think a lot of us have gotten away from that now. It's like back to business. One of the HR tools that I've used, I think that's amazing, has in the one-on-one starting program that the employee goes in and writes in their agenda item and the manager writes in theirs, but the employee also does this sort of well-being check. And I think there's 5 questions on a sliding scale, like, how am I feeling about work this week? You know, how am I, whatever. And as a manager, what I would come to find is everybody sort of has their norm, right? Some people are always higher raters. And so it wasn't so much about the score, it was the relative score week to week. And so I may have a list of a zillion agenda things I want to get through, but if that sliding scale was like moved a little bit to the left, you can be damn sure it's the first and only thing that we might talk about that week because nothing else matters. So I think some type of well-being check-in that's authentic and consistent, I think is critical. I think the second thing, I just recently got trained in mental health first aid. We talk so much about manager. I would love for every, person, parent, teacher, caregiver, leader to do it. It's the world we're in right now. And I think we need to be able to, when we talk about, you know, equipping managers with things, there's having the coaching conversations and everything, as you've mentioned. And then I think there's some real practical things that most of us who are of the age that we're in a leadership position now weren't raised to certainly talk about or have any awareness of what are the indicators of substance abuse, of anxiety and depression and things like that. And the more we can get educated and normalize it, the more we'll be able to lean in on it. And then I think the third thing is related. I think it's being able to have leadership from the top down normalize the hard times, but not only in the times when we're like shit's gone off the rails. It's like, not like here's a hard time and therefore we're doing layoffs, but like in your all hands meetings, instead of always being, you know, the bells and whistles and everything's going to be great, let's talk about what's struggling right now, which things aren't going so well. And the more we can sort of have leaders model that it's okay to have those ups and downs and we're all sort of balancing those things, I think it just creates a space that we don't only talk about the bad things when they're like really, really bad. And I do think a lot of that comes from modeling. And I don't think in general executive teams are very good at that. They're usually doing the sort of sales pitchy kind of thing or the, yeah, things aren't going well type of stuff. So I think there's somewhere on that paradigm that we can get a little bit more authentic about sharing our struggles.